Just imagine the police didn't rescue your drowning wife or daughter because they were 2 meters away from them but couldn't swim. Before I talk about the incident that happened that sparked off the idea for this video, it's a tragic incident, let's go into this whole not being able to swim thing. I have actually made a video about this before. I think we did it on ADV China, talking about the fact that a lot of Chinese people can't swim. And this came up again recently when we had that diplomat, the British diplomat, that saved a drowning student in front of tens, if not hundreds of other Chinese people. Nobody helped, but this elderly man jumped in to help, and it sparked off this whole debate about swimming. Now, this is a societal issue. It's not a race issue, of course. If you look at Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, all the Chinese Americans and Chinese South Africans and etc. that I know, there's no problem. A lot of them are incredibly strong swimmers, many of them stronger than I am when it comes to swimming. Of course, you've got the Olympic swimmers who, sure, there's a lot of controversy around some of them, but it proves that Chinese people can swim incredibly well. Even Mao the Turd, who looks like a floating turd when he swims, he swam. In fact, he actually inspired the entire Chinese nation to take swimming lessons and go swim when he did his, stupid show-off swims that he used to do all the time. I don't know whatever happened. Why did people just give up on that? I mean, the whole Chinese nation was inspired at one point to swim, but now it seems like so few people can. And before anyone goes and says you're just generalizing, yeah, of course I'm generalizing, but it's true. Having lived so long in China, every time I went to the beach, I felt like I had stepped into a kindergarten. You've got all these adults, like full-grown adults, wading into the shallows with kiddie swim rings. It's quite bizarre to see an entire society where a basic human skill, swimming, which is something that every human can do, something that every human should learn how to do, it's just not a part of society. It's not taught in schools. Obviously, the police aren't taught it. Maybe the military's taught it, I don't know. So something that really shocked me when I first got to China and I started to teach English. I started, teaching kindergarten, moved up to middle school, high school. Then I started to move into the corporate world, and I used to teach English at Tencent and at various other big corporations, high-tech companies, government road planning agencies, all this. And it would be part of my curriculum. I would ask, one of the lessons I do was to talk about your past, growing up and things. And I used to ask people, how many bones have you broken? And this is something that really shocked me because, well, at least me growing up in South Africa, I've broken multiple bones, collarbone, fractured ribs, broken my hand, broken my arm, etc. Doing all things like climbing trees, riding motorcycles, the usual stuff. But in my entire 14 years living in China, out of all the Chinese friends I ever met, I didn't meet anyone who'd ever broken a bone. I found this fascinating. But the other second thing that I found fascinating was when I would ask a class, and remember, I'm talking about different generations, different demographics here, all the people that I knew. I would ask the class, how many of you guys can swim? And you'd usually get maybe 2 or 3 hands out of a class of 30 putting their hands up that could swim. And remember, Shenzhen, where I lived, is a melting pot. People from all over the country go to Shenzhen. So it's not like a regional thing either. And don't forget, Shenzhen's on the coast. There are beaches there, there's plenty of water. And it was just shocking to me how few Chinese people that I met could actually swim. I mean, my wife included. I've since taught her how to swim. She can swim, but she's very insecure about swimming, and it's a tough thing. And I'm pretty sure anyone out there who's in a relationship with either a Chinese man or a Chinese woman or has Chinese friends, you can attest to the fact that unless, of course, they grew up in a different country other than China, they're probably pretty weak at swimming. So let's get on to the whole police thing. You would expect that your police force could do a couple of basic things. Number one, they should be fit so they can chase after criminals. So they should be able to pass a physical. They should be able to handle firearms, weapons, things like that, know how to react under pressure, and do basic things like be able to swim. Firefighters as well. Anyone who's kind of out there, EMTs, people that have to, respond to emergency situations. What if someone's in a river or a pond or a lake? They need to be able to swim. It's like a prerequisite, but not in China, as we can see by this awful incident that happened very recently. A 17-year-old girl was attempting to commit suicide, standing there in the lake. And you've got you know, 4 police officers standing 2 meters behind her, but because they're just incapable of swimming, too shit scared to go in the water, she successfully drowned herself 2 meters away from them. Of course, this caused a lot of uproar on the Chinese social media, but the worst part about it is not the people condemning the police officers, but the people saying that they did the right thing. And the reasoning behind this is that it's too risky. They could have drowned too. And this is a big part of that whole horrible societal issue in China, where people don't want to get involved to help other people because they're too afraid that it could negatively affect them. They're too afraid that they might get hurt in the process. And this, of course, leaves us with a very troubling situation. Put yourself in that situation. What if it's your wife or your daughter that has slipped and fallen into a river or a lake, like that student did, that the elderly man saved? And you've got Chinese police right there, and maybe 100 Chinese citizens standing around. What if there isn't an elderly foreigner nearby to save your wife or your daughter or your father or your son or your brother or your sister? They will drown.
My dad, Howard, was a self-taught carpenter. When he...
It's awful. What kind of a society allows that to happen? Here in the United States and in South Africa, when somebody is in need, you can almost be guaranteed that people will stop and try to help. I've seen it with my own eyes here in the States and of course in South Africa. I'm usually the one jumping in to help. Here's a picture of me helping a fellow South African that broke down on the side of the road, and I, offered to tow him. It's just what people do. If you see someone in need, you help. If I see a child, 17-year-old girl drowning in a lake, you bet your bottom dollar I'm jumping in to save her. I don't give a crap about anything else. Saving a human life is always worth the risk. And sure, it doesn't always work out. Following this incident, the Chinese netizens who were defending the police officer's actions started to circulate this article from a couple of years ago where a man drowned trying to save a woman who was drowning, and using this as a reason as to why they shouldn't have stepped in. You know what? That person's a hero. That person should be commended. They should be made an example of, not used as a cautionary tale, but made an example of how a human being should be. There should be like a state funeral or something for this person to show people that this kind of behavior is the kind of behavior that we should applaud. This is what it's like to be civilized and human, to help your fellow human being. Not use it as an example and say, oh, it's good the police didn't help her because look what happened to this guy when he tried to help. This is a sickness inside of Chinese society. And I've covered this before. I'm going to link to a video. If you don't believe me, go watch some social experiments that were done to prove what I'm talking about. But in Chinese society, mainland Chinese society, if you are in trouble, if your life is in danger, the chances of someone stepping in to help you are incredibly slim. And I want China to be embarrassed about this. I want Chinese people in China to feel embarrassed about this. I want the government to feel embarrassed about this. How is it that your police force can't swim? How is it that the majority of your population are weak swimmers and can't help someone in need who's about to drown, your own fellow Chinese person? What's wrong with you? Get embarrassed, because that's the only way China ever changes. You have to embarrass the crap out of them. They got to lose face so they do something about it. And if this video helps embarrass the right people, maybe we'll see the CCP say, guess what? From now on, it's mandatory for all our police officers to learn how to swim. I think that's a good start, don't you? A simple thing. A baby can do it. You throw an infant in the water, they can swim. But Chinese police can't. And a lot of Chinese society can't. Grow up, China. You're not kindergartners anymore. Anyway, I think I just figured out why China hasn't invaded Taiwan yet. Because there's water in between. Seriously though, as a bit of a joke, I think if war ever does break out with China, it doesn't matter with which country, whoever you are, make sure you pick your battles around a body of water, and you're probably guaranteed to win, because the PLA will probably be flailing and drowning all around you, Anyway, guys, no, seriously, all joking aside, it is a serious matter. When somebody's in danger, their life is in danger, and you have the opportunity to help them, you absolutely should. Don't pass by. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us good. This is what makes society good. And if you don't have the skills, if you can't swim, Go and learn. It's so simple. Don't give me some excuses about, oh, it costs money to do it or something. No, it doesn't. Go to a lake. Get someone that you know is a strong swimmer that can teach you how to do it. When I was young, I was taught by my friend's mother in their little paddle pool how to swim. She got me to hold on one of those, pool cleaner poles and kind of dragged me around, taught me how to kick, all of that kind of stuff. Of course, we learn in school later on, but it's such an important skill for people to have. And you should add it to your skill set. Just like walking, running, breathing, eating, I think swimming should be something that all humans can do. China, up your game. Anyway, until next time, guys, you know the drill, as always. Don't be like the Chinese police that let a 17-year-old girl drown 2 meters away from them because they're too useless and can't swim. Either too cowardly or incapable or whatever it is. Don't be like them and stay